Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of my Let's Play World of Tanks, and yeah, I'm really not even sure what I'm going to talk about, so let's wing it and see what happens. Anyway, as some of you might know, and or this may or may not come as old news to you depending on when you watch this, the new 8.2 patch is coming up for Europeans tomorrow, or today, depending on when you watch this, or maybe a few days ago. And they're going to basically include some of the new American vehicles, one of which is, it's all branching off of the, what is the thing called, the M7 MT, which I've been using recently to try and get caught up. I should be ready to go by the time that the patch hits the US, which that date has not been confirmed, but the Europeans have been confirmed for, what is this, December 12th. So they should be getting it very shortly after this video goes up, or you know, they might even be watching this video while they're updating the patch. So yeah, anyway, it is very similar to the French tech tree. I really didn't play them much in the test server because I had such a tough time in the 8.1 test server dealing with the British stuff that I really didn't want to repeat all that nightmare again. And that was basically the fact that a lot of the test server stuff was just overloaded with the exact same tank and very terrible matchmaking, and it was just it wasn't nearly as much play testing so much as just trying out the new tanks. And so it wasn't a fault of anyone, it was just the way that people want to, of course, see the new stuff. They didn't want to play too much of the old stuff. And so that's just how it was. So I didn't really want to mess too much with it. I also kind of wanted to play and experience it all for the first time on my own, rather than just jump into the best and brightest of each tank and not have to deal with it, the grind or anything else, and figure out what made the nuances of that tank. I mean, you can probably imagine based on each tank what the role is, and so I kind of want to give it a fresh shot as opposed to looking at them. I know that I probably should have and whatnot else, and I hurt myself by not doing it, but it's this whole mentality I've had towards betas recently, which I've kind of developed after the beta of this game, and the way I'm kind of avoiding betas of new games is that, you know, playing betas kind of ruins the surprise and experience for you. In addition to the fact that if you do achieve something, you then have to go back and redo it over and over again. So I'd rather not have to repeat the same thing over and over. I'd rather do it once and be happy with it. So anyway, I've talked enough about all these different little surrounding circumstances, and instead, how about this? Hey, so, starting off with the Tier 6 from the M7 MT, you get the T-21 light tank. And then that follows up with a Tier 7, which is another light tank, the T-71. Following that, you get two mediums, which come in at 8 and 9 as a T-69 and a T-54 E1. That's how you can tell the difference between the T-54 I'm driving now and the T-54 American, as there's an E attached to it. And also there's no dash. This one has a dash 54. The Americans do not use the dash. Then finally you get a T-57 as the heavy tank, which is pretty cool. But these are similar to the French, as they should have a autoloader feature, which is kind of cool and will bring different little bits of firepower and fun, you know, new tactics to the Americans. Something that, you know, the Americans have all been a very similar sort of either A, glass cannon, or B, speedy shooty machine, if that makes any sense. But I absolutely loved my Patton. That was probably my favorite tank, and so this American Shri can probably come across and play pretty well. So I can't wait to give it a try. Should be here in another day or two or three or four. I need to make sure that I have my doubles ready, and if not, I need to make sure I have enough free experience I can burn to get there. I hope you guys all do too. So enough talk about future stuff, which again may or may not pan out to be past stuff depending on who you are in terms of when you watch this video, so on and so forth. And so, for someone watching this after the new year, this might be old hat, so I don't want to focus mainly on that, but, you know, a little bit of this, that, and everything. And so, I mean, I've really enjoyed a lot of their updates that they've been putting out on World of Tanks here, and so I figured I'd talk more or less about the updates themselves, and just the direction they're heading versus where I would have liked them to see going. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the fact that they're doing these constant free updates and bringing new stuff in and all that other thing, but sometimes there's just other things I'd like to do. So let me move on and I will talk about that. Yeah, so hey, how about the countdown? I didn't get in this replay. Where was I? Oh yes, talking about updates and how Wargaming puts them out and what content is in them versus what typically you see in most game content patch release things per se. Yeah, kind of stretching for that one, aren't I? But anyway, what Wargaming's doing is it appears like they're doing little bits of updates to certain new trees here and there and everywhere, and they're also bringing out new trees every so often too. Like every second, third, or fourth patch seems to be a new tree, whereas some games they actually would release that as an expansion. One of the nice things is they actually are updating all these maps. They're releasing 4 new maps every single patch, which is fantastic because new maps are always great because that way it allows you to see some new things that were old. So, for example, you look at things like Mountain Pass. That's totally redone and plays completely differently. Dragon Ridge remained relatively the same because that was more or less a fix. But things like Himmelsdorf have been completely revamped. Just certain things have just new lanes of territory, different ways you can go, different cover from previous systems, so on and so forth. So I'm excited that every patch is bringing 4 new maps until they bring them all in line with the new physics update and terrain, texture generation, so on and so forth. So that's really cool. But in terms of patches and content, Wargaming is doing something a little bit, how would you say, like charitable almost to the community. A lot of companies, like let's say, I don't want to throw around names that aren't really fair. It's really not any fair assessment, but just in any aspect, if you were to take a lot of different games, like how the Wargaming just released the British tech tree. Let's take that for example, and then the Chinese tech tree, which was supposed to be released in this upcoming patch, but instead is being withheld for a later point in time. A lot of people would release that as a add-on expansion, which you'd pay for. But since Wargaming is doing this as a free-to-play, they're bringing this content out newer and faster and quicker so that there's new stuff for people to get hooked on, new stuff to keep people who have been playing forever interested, so on and so forth. Like, if you look at some games, you bring out a new race, or which would be equivalent to a tech tree, they'll release that as an expansion. Of course, there'll be a whole storyline around it, whole new maps and areas to explore, maybe later in-game content, so on and so forth. And that comes out, what, maybe once a year, maybe a little over that? Wargaming's bringing out things almost once a month, maybe once every other month at an extreme. But they're not only bringing you updated maps, but they're also bringing you new stuff to do, and it's not necessarily new in-game content per se, but new things that can be used in the in-game. Now, while I don't technically participate much in the in-game anymore, just because of time commitments and everything else, they are bringing options to you, which is awesome. That, like this T-57, sure, they could have, not brought out a tier 10, they could have, meddled with the Russian tech tree is a good example, how they have all these light tanks that they had proposed way back when, like the T-60, 70, and 70 TAC 2, so on and so forth, and the 80. And so they could have brought all that stuff out there, but they'd rather get stuff out there to promote progression as opposed to rehashing the same thing over and over, and that's what they're doing. Yeah, while you might have to play one tank an extra handful of times, you're now actually playing a whole new branch to a tree, or they'll even bring out new branches, like this Chinese branch or tree, or English tree, Commonwealth tree, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, that's bringing whole new content out there, and albeit somewhat of it is a little premature, yeah, I'd like to see, some trees finished or expanded before, it's still nice to have the option to do other things if you're tired of the same exact 3 trees that you go off of every time. And it's something they don't have to do, and it's really awesome that they do release all this stuff for free instead of just, here's because the game started out, if anyone remembers, as just Soviets and Germans, and that was it. So the simple fact that they're throwing in, like, the American tree, which is so expansive and pretty cool, now that they've had time to work on it, improve it, and expand it, from, just because they could, and that's what they said they were going to do, as opposed to just being like, hey, well, buy this, and you can have it. And if you don't, well, then you're limited. They don't. And being a free-to-play model, they don't have to. They're not making money off you just playing a new tech tree. So that's incredible that they're just being like, hey, here's all this new content, do what you want with it and enjoy. So it's really cool that they're doing that. And while, yeah, they had to hold off on the Chinese tree because it needs to be a little bit reworked, which is, it happens, at least they're admitting it and taking care of it as opposed to releasing it prematurely. And they're working on it and bringing out new stuff. Yeah, they could have, you know, brought out TDs and artillery for the Commonwealth forces, or expanded upon the French to give them more like single shot stuff instead of drum fire stuff, so on and so forth. There's different options they could do, and instead they're modifying as they go, and it's awesome that they're bringing little bits and pieces here and there and everywhere, and it's really exciting to see what they're going to bring next. While you kind of have some ideas which they're bringing out, I believe some of the next things is potentially a new German medium branch. There's just all these different options that they are coming out with, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds. In 2013, they did say that they're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff. So come the new year, it's going to be really cool what they come out with and what they do. And, I mean, they don't have to, which is the ultimate thing. They could wrap up shop any day they want and be like, okay, well, time to start making this into a pay-to-play as opposed to free-to-play, and they don't. And I see a lot of MMOs going that way, and it really almost came out of the World of Tanks model that I see a lot of places, like in World of Warcraft, for example, is now play till level X for free, and Star Wars just became free, and Star Trek, well before then, became free, and even now one of the games I'm addicted to now, which is PlanetSide 2, is free to play, which is a fantastic idea with the whole premium gets you 50% more credits and experience and this, that, and the other thing. So it's a cool business model that they're doing, and they're releasing a lot of content. They don't necessarily have to. They could release a bare bones thing and see what happens, but instead they've stuck with this whole, hey, we're going to release all this new content every month or every 2 months so that you guys have something to do and something to work on and progress towards, or start brand new with all this new stuff, so on and so forth. So it's a cool thing they're doing. While I would wish that they would maybe finish or expand upon certain trees before releasing new ones, like maybe expand upon the French more and complete a tree or two before releasing the British, or even release more different game content and or different methods of play, such as in-game like boss battles and such. That'd be cool, but what they're doing is still fantastic and awesome. So with that, I'm going to pluck out this M12 before the game ends, and I want to say thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys are enjoying my Let's Plays, and I guess I will see you guys in the next episode, which will be probably post 2.8. So I'll have to go work on those tanks, and I still have plenty of replays to go through. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next episode.